Now, the largest democracy of the world has entered its election season. The biggest promise that has been made by the Congress is to hold a socio-economic caste census in the country. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi has also termed it as the X-ray of India, which will aid in understanding the population of the caste groups in India. Meanwhile, the BJP has offered enhancing livelihood as one of its biggest promises by doubling Mudra loan limit to 20 lakh rupees. There has been, in fact, a bickering match that has been going on, where on one hand, there is the Congress that is talking about bringing out the wealth redistribution survey, talking about the caste census if it were to come to power. The BJP has been attacking the Congress and Rahul Gandhi and talking about how this is communalization of the electoral politics in our country. There have been comments that have been made by the Prime Minister, by Rahul Gandhi, and it has led to a crescendo of the political war cry that is being witnessed in the country today. I'm going to start my conversation. Joining me on the telecast is Amitabh Pandey of the Congress. Amitabh, my first question to you: why do you think our country needs a caste survey, caste census? Now, don't you think that everybody in the country requires water, electricity, houses, roads, education, health? Why not ensure that there is 100% coverage of all the basics for all the 140 crore people in our country instead?
So, firstly, it's Amitabh Dubey, but no worries. Let us first
okay,
look
beg
at
your
what
pardon,
our manifesto...
Amitabh Dubey on the telecast with me. Yes.
Our manifesto has many promises for critical... One reason the Prime Minister has been saying outright falsehood and lies about our manifesto is that it has had a big impact on the voting public. It has proposals for women to give poor women 1 lakh a year. It has proposals for the youth, 30 lakh jobs in government jobs. The Pehli Naukri Pakki apprenticeship scheme. It has a legal MSP for farmers. It has a 400 rupee wage for Manrega workers. And then we come to the caste census. So firstly, it has a lot of proposals that cut across all sections. Why do we need a caste census? Firstly, I'd like to remind you that the Modi government itself in 2018 promised a caste census. But when the census questions arrived in 2020, the column for the OBC was missing. Mr. Modi himself calls himself Sabse Bada OBC, but all of a sudden he's decided that there are only two castes, rich and poor, because we are pushing the demand for a caste census. OBCs are perhaps the largest single segment of the Indian population, and thousands of crores of rupees are spent on SC, ST, OBC, various disadvantaged groups. So how can it be that in a modern economy, we are relying on 93-year-old data from the 1931 census to direct benefits to the OBCs? So our simple demand is for a caste census, a socio-economic caste census, like the one that was done in 2011, but an updated one, so we can have rational policy making and a discussion, a data and evidence-based discussion on representation.
But are you saying what percent? Is 35% enough to give caste-based quotas, or is it 50%, or is it 75%, or is it 100%? So are you saying that 75% of the population which belongs to the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, Dalits, OBCs and other minority castes and communities are going to be provided with jobs, are going to be provided with education, are going to be provided with their special categories in other spheres? And then what happens to those people who may be of the forward caste but are equally poor or even worse off?
So as I said, our schemes are first and foremost oriented towards all the poor from every category: SC, ST, OBC, EWS, etc., etc.
Yeah, but then my question is why is there a need for differentiation? Does it not lead to divisiveness? And the point that you've announced the manifesto today, or just a few days ago, ahead of the elections, voting taking place in the country, does this not become akin to polarization, to appeasing to certain categories of the population in our country?
If asking for OBCs to be counted and not to be given benefits on the basis of 93-year-old data is appeasement, then why does the Prime Minister call himself Sabse Bada OBC? Why did the Modi government promise to count OBCs in 2018
The Prime Minister is
and
saying
then
that
go
he
back
is
on the
OBC,
promise
and
in
despite
2020?
all the problems, obstacles that he faced, he's become the Prime Minister of the country. He served the country for 23 years. I'm saying, why can't there be a differentiation made between the rich and the poor? And therefore, their upgradation, therefore their help, therefore their empowerment and their affirmative action taken towards their development, towards their welfare. Why does the poor have to be further divided into scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, Dalits, OBCs, and then you're going to divide them into Muslims and so on and so forth?
Firstly, these are constitutional categories, so it is not we, it is the nation that has decided to have these categories, and we support that. The fact is that in the last 10 years, inequality has become a huge problem in India. Thomas Piketty himself, who's a leading researcher of inequality, has said that inequality in India today is more than it was during the British Raj. 22 families in India today own as much wealth as 40 crore Indians. 1% of the population owns this as much wealth as 40 crore. That is the correct statistic. So there is a very serious problem in inequality, and we need data to discuss this, to debate this, and to understand how the policies of the Modi government have led to this and what can be done to resolve this. And the caste census is very much part of this conversation.
So how do you plan to redistribute this wealth? Now, are you saying that the Indian families, households are going to be x-rayed on the basis of caste, how much income they earn, what are the assets and jewelry and gold and other assets that they have accumulated? And then is this not akin to Maoism, communism, Leninism and Stalin era of communism that was witnessed and that failed miserably, by the way?
So firstly, the word, contrary to what the Prime Minister has said, there is no word redistribution in our manifesto. No religious group is mentioned in our manifesto. If the current census, the censuses we have had in the British era and contemporarily, except of course the one that Mr. Modi has delayed indefinitely in the excuse of COVID, they all count exactly the things you are objecting to. They count people's assets, they count what kind of residence they have, they ask them whether they are SC or ST or any other group. All we are saying is we need one more column here that asks what is an OBC, so we can count what is the biggest disadvantaged group in this country. If it's okay to count SCs and STs, what is the problem in counting OBCs? How does it become Maoist or radical or revolutionary in any way?
No, the question that I was asking was, when you're talking about wealth redistribution survey, if you are not...
But we don't talk about wealth redistribution.
If the idea is not to take the wealth of the rich people and distribute it amongst the poor, what is it that you are trying to resolve by coming up with a wealth redistribution survey? If you could enlighten me on that.
Yeah, so it is not a wealth redistribution survey. As I said, the word redistribution is nowhere in our manifesto. What we want to do is understand the extent of inequality. Thousands of crores of government money is spent on disadvantaged groups, but we have no data about actually how many OBCs there are in India. What is the extent of their disadvantage? We know that they are underrepresented across the board, particularly in critical institutions like the media, like government senior positions, businesses, and so on. We want to generate a conversation about representation. It does not mean at all that there will be redistribution. Government money has to be spent rationally, and without data, you cannot spend government money rationally.
Okay. I'm going to get in Savio Rodriguez. Now, Savio, when the Congress's spokesperson says that there is nowhere in the manifesto mentioned that the Congress is promised to hold a wealth redistribution survey, what does that mean? Does that then turn the conversation completely on its head? And then what is it that the other politicians are harping upon? If the Congress has decided that there is going to be no redistribution, then what is it that is happening in the media? What is it that is happening on the ground? What are these speeches that are being made by Rahul Gandhi?
Megha, let's talk about the larger issue, which is the categorization of people based on either their caste or their creed, right? So I come from the Indian Christian community, and because I have been told for decades that I am a minority, I continue to believe and expect that I should get benefits as a minority. But let me give you a harsh truth personally. I don't consider myself to be a minority in India at all. I denounced it. Because I am a son of Bharat Mata and my mother does not look at me as a minority or a majority. But this country has been in this whirlpool of caste and creed categorization for decades. Now, the important aspect that you need to understand while we are at it, if you look at what has been happening in the country over the last 10 years, okay, in the year 2015, financial year 2015, the SE students were 4.6 million. And in year 2023, the SE students are 6.97 million, which means a 51.4% jump in students. If you look at the female students in the SC category as well, it was 2.10 during in the year 2015, and it's 3.36 in the year 2023, which is a 59.6% jump. So what you are seeing over the last couple of years, in particularly during the Modi administration, is that there has been extensive drives to make the SC, the STs, the OBCs, the economically weaker sections inclusive with the rest of the country and with the rest of the citizens. Now, my good friend, who actually surprised me because he spoke very articulately, is I come on your show and I hear a lot of Congress people and they're not articulate at all. But this gentleman is very, very articulate, and I like what he said, right? So in the course of that discussion, let me ask him, during the time when the Congress was in its power and had the opportunity to do the caste census and deliver in the manner or the vision that you are talking about at this point of time. You had Indira Gandhi at that time and you had Rajiv Gandhi at that time. Both opposed the caste census. Now they did it because they also at that point of time did not believe in the idea of dividing the country in the matter of caste. Then why is it that it's a prerequisite to the son and the grandson, that is Rahul Gandhi, that this country needs to be divided on a basis of its caste or a basis of its creed? Okay. Can we not look at categorization and social welfare and social upliftment through the prism of an economic strata, which primarily means the economically weaker sections?
Yeah, so then how do you justify, Savyo, the existing quotas that are provided on the basis of caste in our country? Of course, the huge protests that had taken place decades ago about the Mandal Commission, and the youth of the country were up in arms and talking about the economically weaker sections where a 10% has been granted to them as quota. Why continue with the divisiveness of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes and the other categories of the disenfranchised, and then ensure that a line is divided, line is created where the community, the country, the citizens are divided into those who are rich versus the others who are impoverished?
You see, Megha, you are looking at a systemic problem that existed for decades. Today, the Prime Minister made a statement that we will not have divisions based on religion or minorities based on religion. I agree with him. That's the first step. You cannot have a minority based on religion. And as we go ahead and we empower more within the OBCs, the SC, the STs, and the economically weaker sections, we will slowly move away from categorizing them based on their caste. This is a social weakness. This is a social evil. While it existed many years ago, decades ago, I think in a progressive, developing country that aims to be a developed nation, we need to be away from reservations that are based on caste and creed. And I think, and I believe by 2047, when we reach the 100 years mark, we will actually be based on merit rather than on reservations.
Okay, all right.
Can I answer this question to me?
I have with me the Aam Aadmi Party spokesperson, Advocate Anmol Pawar as well. And Anmol, how do you respond to this entire political brickbats that at this point of time are exchanged between the BJP and the Congress? How do you view this caste census, this wealth redistribution survey that the Congress at this point of time has promised in its manifesto? You part of India Alliance, do you agree to this?
Megha, I agree that a country needs a comprehensive caste census to achieve the constitutional goal of social justice, diversity, equity, and equality. Having said that, I heard both my friends on the panel, but we must not question the wisdom of the Honorable Supreme Court. The Honorable Supreme Court in Indira Sahni judgment has allowed backward classes to be identified in terms of caste, and the numerical strength of various castes is highly relevant for reservation in job. That is what our Article 16(4) of the Constitution, which enables reservation in employment, makes inadequate representation as the basis of enabling provision. So that is why it is relevant. The proportion between population and representation in services is very important. And as far as OBC reservation is concerned, they are covered under Article 15(4) and 15(5). So we must not question the wisdom of the Honorable Supreme Court, and people of this country know that Bharatiya Janata Party is reluctant to conduct this caste census across the country, which the people have been demanding. In fact, they have been talking openly about changing the constitution because their prime agenda is to abolish reservation, as has been said by their leader in 2015. And 2017, RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat ji said that reservation should be abolished. So they are the ones who are against the Dalit, tribal and backward classes of this country.
Anmol, how does a government make policies to ensure that there is affirmative action that is taken for a particular community or a category of citizens living in our country? Again, who makes the decisions? For how long do these quotas continue to benefit that category? Who decides what percentage of quotas are to be provided? Because when we are talking about an equitable growth of the country, of all the countrymen, we are also talking about meritocracy. What happens to the people, what happens to the students, what happens to the professionals who are on merit supposed to get their job but end up losing it simply because there is a 75% quota for the other backward classes or the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes or the Dalits that has taken over. And what about the brain drain? What about the stagnancy of the economy that is a direct result of large percentage of quotas?
Megha, first of all, their intention is very clear. Recently, their leaders, Jyoti Mirda, who's contesting Lok Sabha elections, Arun Govil from Meerut, their leader Lallu Singh Ayodhya MP, and Anant Kumar Hegde, their minister from Karnataka. They are openly saying that they want 400 seats so that they can change constitutions. The facts which you have mentioned,
you are not answering my question.
Megha, I'm answering it now. The facts which you have mentioned have been submitted before the Honorable Court, and all these factors have been considered. And that is when this Indira Sahni judgment, which stands today also, has been passed. So I think we must not question the wisdom of the Honorable Supreme Court. If the government is so concerned, then they must approach the Honorable Court.
Okay. Professor Bhaskar Joshi also on the show with me.
Because only if, when we can ascertain the backward community in our country, their participation and policies.
How long? Is it going to take 75 years? Is it going to take 100 years? Is it going to take 150 years? Can a policy be made and the policy makers come to a decision that you listen, this is the times that needs to be provided for the impoverished community, impoverished categories to come closer to a level playing field, and thereafter remove the quota. The same question was raised during the Mandal Commission that had come out. there was the Kamandal Commission, and we saw that the youth of the country were out on the streets. Unfortunately, the politics played truant, and that led to the complete submission of the demands that were being made by the individuals, by the professionals, by the students. I'm going to come to Professor Bhuvan
Megha,
Bhaskar Joshi.
but the policies
Professor
can
Bhuvan
only be
Bhaskar,
made
how do you
if
view
we are.
this? How do you view this in terms of the politics that is being played out? Do you also see that while the promises that are being made by the Congress and the India Alliance members who are supporting this is also at the very crucial time when the elections are taking place, at a time that the influence that the Congress is trying to have on the voters is also very high, at a time if they all reach out to the OBCs and the Dalits and the minorities, religious minorities, they are hoping that they get the votes.
माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी और माननीय गृह मंत्री जी और आज देश के हमारे जो रक्षा मंत्री हैं माननीय राजनाथ सिंह जी, जो इनकी भाषा जो बिगड़ी है, मुझे लगता है वो केवल जो पहले चरण का जो चुनाव है, उस चुनाव के जो उनको विश्वास जनता ने नहीं दिखाया इनके ऊपर, उसके परिणाम स्वरूप इनकी भाषा बदली है। चुनाव होना था देश की बेरोजगारी पर, चुनाव होना था महंगाई के ऊपर, लेकिन भारतीय जनता पार्टी अपनी फेवरेट पिच पर इस चुनाव को लाना चाहती है। और देश ने बिल्कुल साफ कह दिया, मैं कांग्रेस का स्पोक्स पर्सन नहीं हूँ, लेकिन मैं बताना चाहता हूँ 2004 से 14 तक की कांग्रेस की सरकार रही, क्या इन विषयों पे कोई काम हुआ? ये जनता तय कर लेगी, 140 करोड़ के लोग। लेकिन 2014 से 2024 तक आदरणीय मोदी जी की सरकार में जो घोटाले हुए, जो विश्व का सबसे बड़ा घोटाला हुआ, इलेक्ट्रॉन बॉन्ड के बहाने जो सबसे बड़ा घोटाला था, वो 6,986 करोड़ का था। जनता जानना चाह रही है ये अगर सरकार में वापस आ गए तो स्थिति कितनी भयावह हो जाएगी। और स्थिति
आप इस समय जो टॉपिक है उससे थोड़ा सा साइडलाइन हो रहे हैं, उसको थोड़ा डाइवर्ट करें। मैं इस समय आपसे इस बारे में पूछना चाहूंगी, मैं करप्शन के बारे में बाद में आपको बुला के अपने टेलीकास्ट में उस पर बात करना चाहूंगी, पर इस समय मेरा फोकस ये है जो आपका कास्ट कोटा है, जो आपका वेल्थ रीडिस्ट्रीब्यूशन का कोटा है, जो सर्वे आप करना चाह रहे हैं, इंडिया अलायंस के मेंबर्स मिलकर कांग्रेस ने इसका एक प्रस्ताव रखा है, इस बारे में क्या आप इसको कम्युनल पॉलिटिक्स नहीं कहेंगे? क्योंकि इलेक्शन का सीजन है, आप चाहते हैं कि इन सब जो कम्युनिटीज़ हैं, चाहे आप ओबीसी की बात कर लें या दलित की बात करते हैं, एसटी एससी की बात करें या मुस्लिम माइनॉरिटीज़ की बात करें, आप इन सब के ऊपर प्रभाव डालना चाहते हैं कि होपफुली जब आप ये अनाउंसमेंट करते हैं कास्ट कोटा की, कास्ट सेंसस की, वेल्थ रीडिस्ट्रीब्यूशन के बारे में बात करते हैं, आप सोचते हैं कि शायद ये सब लोग फिर प्रभावित होंगे और आपको वोट देंगे?
मैं आपको केवल अपने समाजवादी पार्टी का पक्ष बता सकता हूँ, और समाजवादी पार्टी ने एक बात करी है सामाजिक न्याय की, सोशल जस्टिस की। मैं पूछना चाहता हूँ आपसे, आपके चैनल के माध्यम से, जब इस देश में पौधों की गिनती हो सकती है, पेड़ों की गिनती हो सकती है, पशुओं की गिनती हो सकती है, तो जाति की गिनती होने में क्या दिक्कत है? क्या कास्ट इस देश का सच नहीं है? इस देश का सच है। आपकी भी मेघा जी मैं जरूर कहना चाहता हूँ, आपने चाहे दस्तकों को लिखा होगा नहीं लिखा होगा, आपकी भी कोई जाति होगी। जितने मेरे साथी पैनलिस्ट बैठे हैं की भी एक जाति है, मेरी भी एक जाति है। मैं बताना चाहता हूं जाति इस देश का सच है। और जिस प्रकार हम देख पा रहे हैं योगी सरकार में, आदरणीय मोदी जी के सरकार में आरक्षण की जो लूट हुई है, विश्वविद्यालयों में जो सूची आई है, जो आरक्षण पे कुठाराघात इन्होंने करा है, और इनके सांसद किस तरह की भाषा बोलने का प्रयोग कर रहे हैं, वो कह रहे हैं कि अगर हम लोग सरकार में आ गए, हम लोग इस देश का संविधान बदल देंगे, डॉक्टर भीमराव अम्बेडकर साहब का संविधान बदल देंगे, आप आरक्षण को खत्म कर देंगे।
आप कह रहे हैं कि कास्टिज्म हमारे देश में बसा हुआ है, पर मैं ये कहना चाहती हूँ कि ये चेंज ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन हम क्यों नहीं ला सकते? चाहे एक इंसान हो, एक कम्युनिटी हो, चाहे वो फॉरवर्ड कास्ट की हो, चाहे वो दलित हो, चाहे वो ओबीसी हो, एक पुअर आदमी, एक जो कि पॉवर्टी में आदमी हो, उसकी जात तो सिर्फ वही है कि वो पुअर है, चाहे फिर वो ब्राह्मण हो या फिर वो कोई ठाकुर हो, चाहे वो कोई ओबीसी से बिलोंग करता हो या शेड्यूल कास्ट, शेड्यूल ट्राइब से बिलोंग करता हो, तो सबके लिए एक सामान्य कोटा क्यों नहीं दिया जा सकता? इसको आप कास्ट में क्यों डिवाइड कर रहे हैं? एसटी के लिए अलग, ओबीसी के लिए अलग, दलित के लिए अलग, मुसलमान के लिए अलग।
मेघा जी, ये बात तो आपको देश के प्रधानमंत्री से पूछना चाहिए। देश के सर्वोच्च संवैधानिक पद पर रहकर प्रधानमंत्री जी कैसे कह सकते हैं कि मैं तो ओबीसी जाति से आता हूं? उन्हें तो बताना चाहिए मैं देश का नागरिक हूं। जाति की बात भारतीय जनता पार्टी नहीं करती। हाँ, जाति जनगणना से उनको दिक्कत है, क्योंकि सामाजिक न्याय हो जाएगा, सोशल जस्टिस हो जाएगा। जिन लोगों को अभी तक न्याय नहीं मिल पाया वो लोग मुख्य धारा में देश की आ जाएंगे। यही तो दिक्कत है भारतीय जनता पार्टी की। ये जाति की तो बात करेंगे लेकिन जाति जनगणना नहीं करेंगे।
Okay, all right. I'm out of time. I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast. Stay tuned. On the other side, we're talking about, amidst this cacophony that we witnessed within political parties over caste census, over wealth redistribution, and the commentary that is coming in from Rahul Gandhi, from Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.